My father, and later joined by my mother Khorshed, were the spark that helped ignite the modern art movement in Bombay. I did feel that they were going to be representatives of the first kind of visual, contemporary image of India post-independence. This is my father, Kekee Gandhi.
Hi everyone, this is Silas Ram, AsianCultureVulture.com. I'm with Behroze Gandhy, who's made a film called Kekee Manzil, House of Art.
He spent the latter part of his life pottering around and irritating my mother.
Behroze, welcome to AsianCultureVulture.com. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well.
So here we are for the world premiere in London at Regent Street Cinema, part of the UK Asian Film Festival. Tell me what sparked the idea for this film. What made you want to go back and explore that part of your own life and your family's life and the house?
Well, let's start. I wasn't interested in exploring the house or the family. Right. I was interested in recording my father and mother because I knew that they were really they just happened to be, particularly my father, the right place at the right time in terms of the whole development of the Indian art movement. And I used to hear these stories endlessly of my father droning on about so-and-so. And you know how when you're young, you just, oh God, not Mr. Langhammer again. People from all over came to ask my parents about their remarkable achievements. And then as I got older and interested in art myself, living over here, lots of people who were around them said, you know, you're a filmmaker, you should be recording this. This is really important history that you should sort of... So that's how it started. I actually literally in 2002 bought a handycam and sat my parents down and did an interview with them, made them talk. Now this is kind of very strange for them to just talk about their life. I've lost that footage. But it kind of got the idea going. It was only when older that I pieced together what he was actually up to. Over the years, I just kept recording things that were happening in the family, around the family, people who were coming, the artists who were around. And I got a huge, and of course it wasn't funded. I was just doing it, not with camera. People. One time I did a good interview with my father, and I'm really glad because he died soon after that. So I got that with, you know, a professional crew. And I kept accumulating material. And I knew I needed a good editor, and you know, to do something with it because I was too close to the subject, and that's when I thought of Dilesh Korya, who I'd worked with before, but he was not available for various reasons, and he had become, you know, very successful. So I had to wait 4 years before he became available. So this film just kept stretching in time. I worked with another editor, and he didn't kind of have that same understanding of the Indian situation. So luckily, in 2016, I persuaded Dilesh to come and work with me. And he thought I was just wanting to make a film about my father. And that wasn't what I was in. I was trying to document the art movement. But the moment he saw the art, you can talk to him about that, you know. His point of view changed. My father, and later joined by my mother Khorshed, were the spark that helped ignite the modern art movement in Bombay.
What was the moment for you, or what was that period when you knew you had all the material? Was it like when Dilesh said, I'm ready, I'm available now, and then you knew you just had to...
Well, I gave him what I'd shot, and then he knew, you know, there were lots of things missing. He had his own vision, you know. So then we did a lot more interviews which were more focused around the story. So it sort of started really building up from 2017.
And was it difficult emotionally to go back and look at the interviews you had done with your mother and father? Because obviously they're not here. And
no, what was really difficult for me was he kept saying, you've got to be at the center of the story. And I said, no. I said, absolutely no. I'm not a performer. I've always been a producer. I'm behind the camera. I'm kind of a and that's not my thing. And as we were filming and as we were working at, he said, without you being the narrator, this thing doesn't hold together. So it took him 2 years after that to persuade me.
No, but I think it really works because it's a very personal, very intimate, and lots of insights that you also offer about your mother and father, which an outsider could never have that kind of insight.
I grew up in Bombay and I got always labeled as Kekoo and Khorshed's daughter. So I took 7,000 miles away and came over here to the Regent Street Poly to distance myself from them, you know.
It's a very kind of has a beautiful arc in many ways that we should be, the world premiere should be here and this is where you came to study and almost get away from all that.
From them, you know.
Yeah.
And then it took me a long time after struggling over here, and then I started to get, you know, meeting people who said, you know, your father's, and I got a lot of grace from being their daughter, and then I had to kind of almost acknowledge that. Right. So there was a big personal journey of also acknowledgement and gratitude.
Kekoo's enthusiasm for what the art world could be and how it could lead modern cultural invention in Bombay, in India, was really, really significant.
What would you like people to get from this film? I mean, not so much directly as a message, but I think it tells a certain story, not just about the precise subject matter of the artists and your father's involvement in art, but perhaps a wider story?
Well, I'm really interested in telling the story that India was a secular nation and artists belonged to all kinds of communities. There was no kind of one community, and my parents were very anti-communal. And that was the story of metropolitan Bombay, and that's trying to be, people are trying to distance themselves from it, deny it, whitewash it, remove it. And I hope my film is there as a message of saying that this was the world that was there. And
I mean, why do you feel that's important to restate?
Because history is being rewritten today in India. They're changing the textbooks and they're trying to form a vision of India which is just purely, you know, I don't want to get into a whole political
sure. No,
thing.
I think the film has a much wider resonance. It's not terribly political. That's my own personal view because it's a lot more than just about. It's really about a society in flux in some way, but also managing that flux compared to today a lot better. In some instances, obviously you cover the Bombay riots and so forth, but that early period, the 50s, 60s, I don't know how much when you were growing up. Can you kind of set the background of when you were growing up and those artists were at their kind of...
Well, artists, you know, there was nobody was really interested in contemporary art. It had no market value. Thrilling and shocking in equal measure. That was what was so beautiful. So what would happen was when Gallery Kemold started in 63, it was up above the Jahangir Art Gallery, you know, which is a really public space. And they had this little gallery, amazing space that had been transformed. And it had air conditioning. And people used to love coming there. So everybody used to come there. And the artists would come there from all over and talk. And today, art has become so big, artists are all trapped in their studios. They only see each other maybe at openings. But I remember in those 60s, people used to just come and talk. The artists would just come and discuss their ideas and you know, their visions and their politics and their family. Everything used to happen in the gallery because it wasn't seen as a commercial venture. And then my parents would come home and said, oh, you know, we sold something for 8,000 rupees today. That was like a big deal. You know? Art that gave voice to a new nation, born out of the bloody upheaval of partition and independence.
Your dad sort of stumbled into art. He didn't have a real sense of
He didn't have an art background. As I said, he was at the right place at the right time. First of all, he was a frame manufacturer, and the film covers that. And then, but before that, there were also these Italian prisoners of war, and they used to come every Sunday, and they'd cook, and they'd have these. It was a big house, and he loved to entertain, and so they'd come over, and a lot of them were artists themselves. So they kind of gave him an idea about something. He realized he wasn't just a commercial person. He was some kind of vision. He had a different vision, and he could explore it and find it. And then the frame shop happened, and Husain turned up and wanted,
Did you have a sense when you were growing up that these people were going to be very famous, very influential, because our people like MF Husain and some of the other artists?
Yeah, well, I suppose it kept their, because I did feel that they were going to be, representatives of, the first kind of visual contemporary image of India post-independence, because nothing had been, there hadn't been, you couldn't talk about a language. There was the colonial language before that, and this was a new language. So I guess I had a sense that this would evolve. I didn't realize it would become such, the art market would boom in that kind of way. Yeah.
And so what's your thinking or your strategy for the film? I mean, it's got the world premiere today. Will it be shown in India? What do you think you'll be taking it?
Well, I'd love to show it to play. I mean, where there's some people in Oxford who are really interested. So where there is a kind of university and a specialist area where there are art galleries, I think that's where the interest in this film is. Will take off, and people will organize events. But ultimately, I'd like it to go online in some platform, because so many people want to see it. So that's what we're trying to work on where it's going to be available online.
Yes. And why would you like people to watch it? What's your kind of what would you say to somebody who said, "What's it about? Why should I watch this film?"
Well, because lots of people are interested in art, and they didn't know that there was such, especially people in the West have no idea that there's such a tradition of Indian artists. I mean, everybody in India may be knowing them, but not so much in the UK. And that's very much the response we got when we've shown it at private places. Wow, we didn't know that. Why don't we know about this art movement?
Behroze, thank you so much
for
your time, and all the best for the film.
Thank you.
Thank you.